To the US now, Donald Trump has wasted no time preparing America about what to expect when he returns to the White House. He declared that woke has to stop, insisting that it's destroying the country and essentially that woke is BS.
With the stroke of my pen on day one, we're going to stop the transgender lunacy, and we will keep men out of women's sports.
Freya, I think there are going to be a lot of relieved parents and relieved women hearing that message from Donald Trump.
For sure. And I think this is the courage that so few political leaders really have. And it's easy now to look at Trump saying this stuff and be like, well, of course men shouldn't be in women's sports. But that was not the consensus position. Even a couple of years ago, even a year ago, things were so different. But it just shows you the power that courageous individuals can have and how we can actually turn around our culture. We really can. Conservatives often resign themselves to the backseat and say, oh, well, everything's just going to get more progressive and there's nothing we can really do about it, but try to resist as much as we can. But at the end of the day, it's a losing fight. No, we can actually turn the ship around. And I think the way Trump has come out so strongly against this crazy, radical, anti-reality wokeness and the way he has been rewarded by the general public shows that conservatives need to get up off their butts and stop whining about always losing every fight because they don't have to lose. We can actually win fights. And this proves if we're on the side of truth, if we're on the side of reality and common sense, we will win.
Yeah, and we saw that in the US, didn't we, Joe, with the election results. The pendulum really swung and people really rejected all this woke nonsense.
Yeah, and it's not just the right, it's not just conservatives as well. So there is just a huge number of people in the Labor Party who were thinking the exact same thing, but basically thought that they were the only ones thinking it and were scared to say anything in case they were cancelled or pilloried. They're back now. And again, Chris Minns is the embodiment of the sensible centrist Labor Party. And he's done some fantastic things for trans people and the LGBTQ community. Done things that, you know, if anyone else did them would be seen to be woke. But he's done it from a really sort of calm and careful and considered sort of sensible position. And I think that is the problem here has not necessarily been the issues themselves, but it's been the activists behind them. And it's been like what Freya said, where you have these people who care more about the sound of their own voices than they do about actually achieving outcomes, or indeed the vulnerable people who they might be pretending to represent, but where they just want an issue to fight for. They want to be on the forefront of something. They look around, you know, oh, we've got marriage equality for gay people. Oh, what's next? Trans. So now you have to accept that trans women are women, and if you don't say that absolutely, and again, that absolute dogma, absolutely all the time, no matter what, then you're transphobic, you're a bigot, and you have to be cancelled. And they get sort of ahead of these arguments, and then they try to brainwash people and say, if you don't support everything we say, this new orthodoxy that we've spelt out, if you don't support all of it, then you're a bigot and you're on the wrong side of history, and this is just progress. And so conservatives think, oh, dear, that's progress. That's what I don't want to, you know, end up looking like, you know, a white supremacist during slavery or whatever. I better just do whatever they say. And of course, if you are seen to cross them and they do pile on, as we will see later on the show, then it is just absolutely brutal and it's ferocious. And people who would otherwise be sympathetic to a lot of these issues, and certainly a lot of the people who are suffering as a result, just go, well, no, screw you all. If you're just going to run around marauding people, abusing them, telling people, you know, trying to come for people's jobs or whatever it is, just because they don't agree with the last thing that you've said everyone has to agree with, then I'm just going to be opposed to whatever it is you say, no matter what, because that is what you're doing to everyone else.
But that's the thing, it's different from, you know, if you're conservative and standing up for your values and what you believe in, you don't have to be labelled a white supremacist, a Nazi, all these horrible things that that's right. With.
Exactly. Like the idea of calling Donald Trump a Nazi is.
And we heard that on repeat.
The person that is most insulting to is not Donald Trump. It is all the actual victims of Nazism.
Yeah.
And of course, the Jewish community would laugh their ass off at you because to them, Donald Trump is the saviour who's delivered the best result for Israel in his presidency than any of the other presidents could deliver. But again, it just shows that anyone, it's that ridiculous extremist ideological thinking where if you don't agree with everything I say, you're a bigot, you're a fascist, you're a Nazi, and there's no shades of people who disagree.
I think the key problem that the left will always run into is that what is progress? And if you blindly pursue progress as the virtue in and of itself, you're actually not bound to any underlying values. There's no guiding philosophy other than the fact that we need to move forward, regardless of where we're moving to. No one will tell you, well, what are we progressing towards? Just endless revolution, endless tearing down of the cultural fabric, endless undermining of everything, that's built Western civilization, because that is progress and that is the only value that they hold. But conservatives will win, and I don't even think it's conservatives necessarily. I think people on the side of truth will win.
Normal people.
When we actually stick to truths that have held the test of time, gender being one of them. Hey, the fundamental binary that at a base level distinguishes the most fundamental differences between human beings, gender, that's actually a real thing. And yes, there are only two. If we stick to truth as our core value, we will always come out on the right side of history, because eventually truth will prevail. Reality is what you run into when you're wrong. And the left is running into reality fast because they're fundamentally wrong.
Well said.
That's right. And it's sorry, this obsesses me, but that's right. I mean, so the key here is that for people to go around saying you're on the wrong side of history means that they and only they know what the future is. So what the left, and this is the extreme left as opposed to the sensible sort of pragmatic centre left. But so they imagine, and again, this is where revolutions and civil wars cost millions and millions of lives. You imagine a utopia in your head. You all agree what it must look like, or don't agree or whatever, but you thrash out what it must look like. You purge everyone who disagrees with you, take them out the back and shoot them. And then you have this utopia. And then from that moment onwards, it does not matter how many people die or who suffers, because it is all worth it in pursuit of this utopia that you know is coming, but only exists in your imagination. And that's how Mao was able to do it. That's how the Soviets were able to do it.
But I would say the danger of the pragmatic centre-left that you talk about, and I have to call you up on Chris Minns, right? Putting through the equality bill, which allowed for gender self-identification, a whole bunch of things that I think actually go to this wokeness that we need to stamp out. And so the problem with the centre-left as opposed to the far left is they are in some senses even more dangerous, because they haven't thought through the full utopian vision. They just believe in progress. So they're the ones actually running blind. I'd rather know what you're heading towards, and then we can attack that, than just being on this endless train of progress.
Well, so my wife, as a conservative, I would have thought you'd take the opposite view, Freya. You just sort of see where we were and how we were going and solve problems as they arise. And that is what the Equality Bill sought to do. My wife works for Equality Australia, so she was working on the bill, and so she was very happy with Chris Minns. She says that I'm no longer the most handsome man in her life. and again, to me, I thought it was very sensible, but to me, it was the perfect example of not shoving things in people's faces, or indeed in people's change rooms or whatever, by dealing with problems as they arise to protect people as much as possible on both sides, rather than, again, projecting this kind of new world order and saying, if you don't sign up to it immediately, you're a bigot. And so it is something that's done, and I can guarantee if there are issues where women are feeling uncomfortable because of encroachment on women's only space, I can London to a brick, he will come in, he will fix whatever needs to be fixed to do that. But it is all about just that non-ideological, solving problems in the simplest and easiest way, not cancelling people, not saying, okay, everything has to be like this. Believe it or not, there are activists who thought the Equality Bill should be junked entirely because it didn't go far enough. And so these are the kind of crazy people that we're dealing with, both on the left and the right.